So, today we're going to take a guided tour through a really unusual and, frankly, pretty intense corner of the internet. It's a website called Demopocrisy.com. It's kind of one part legal archive, one part personal manifesto, and it lays out this incredibly structured challenge to the justice system. The big question is, what is it all for? Let's dive in.
Right off the bat, this is the first thing you see on the homepage. And wow, what a tagline, right? It immediately tells you what this is all about. It frames the entire project as this crusade to expose what it sees as hypocrisy by presenting its own version of the truth.
Okay, so to really get our heads around this site, we're going to break our tour down into 4 key parts. First, we'll ask, what does democracy even mean? Then, we'll look at who's actually behind it all. After that, we'll dig into the digital archive itself. And finally, try to figure out what the ultimate goal here really is. All right, first up, what is this project really trying to do? Well, on the surface, the site presents itself as a pretty sharp critique of our institutions, especially the legal system. But, it goes a lot deeper than just that. And yeah, the site actually gives us its own definition for its mission. This isn't just a random list of complaints, it's framing itself as a methodical, almost scientific analysis. The idea here is to take these big, founding principles of justice, compare them directly against real-world case data, and then use any gaps between the two to point out what it argues are huge structural flaws in the whole system. The entire argument is built across these 4 major sections. It's a very deliberate flow. You start with a list of legal cases and analysis, then you move into this massive evidence archive. From there, it lays out a forward-looking strategy, and it all ends with a demand for something it calls restitution. It's a complete journey, from documenting a grievance to demanding a resolution. So, who is the person putting all this work in? I mean, a site this detailed and complex doesn't just appear out of nowhere. To really get what the site's about, we kind of have to understand the creator.
Well, according to the site's own bio, it was founded by a single person named Lozanich, who is a designer and a researcher. And honestly, that background shows everywhere you look. The whole project is built with a designer's sense of structure and a researcher's intense focus on evidence.
And this is where it all gets very, very personal. Lozanich is pretty clear about the motivation here. He calls the site a sovereign repository, basically an independent record that only he controls. He also describes it as a structural defense of his own story, a way to document his lived experiences and, I find this phrase fascinating, an analytical proof of endurance. This quote from the bio, man, it really gets to the core of the whole thing. If this declaration that no matter what official systems might say, the voice in this archive is designed to be permanent, to be unchangeable, and to be completely independent. All right, let's move on and actually look inside the heart of the website, the archive itself. What kind of information are we actually talking about here? What's inside? So everything is basically built on these 2 main pillars. On one side, you've got this super detailed list of legal cases, which the site breaks down, looking for what it calls procedural errors. And on the other side, you have a 4-part evidence repository that mixes first-hand accounts with hard data to build its argument. And when you start digging into the case studies, you see just how serious these topics are. The articles cover some pretty heavy stuff. For example, there are claims about something called technologically facilitated terrorism, which the site describes as involving voice-to-skull or V2K technology. It also gets into critiques of things like targeted surveillance, really long pretrial detentions, and alleged unlawful arrests. It's a very detailed catalog of what the creator believes are systemic failures, all told from an intensely personal viewpoint. Okay, so after compiling all of this data, all this analysis, all this personal testimony, you have to ask, right? What is this all for? What is the intended outcome? Where is this all supposed to lead? And that brings us to the final part of our tour. Because this website isn't just supposed to be a dusty old archive. Nope, it's designed to be a tool for action. It lays out a very specific roadmap toward what it defines as justice. Now, the site draws a really sharp line between its strategy and its ultimate goal. Think of it like this. The case strategy section, that's the playbook. It's all the legal arguments, the tactics, the maneuvers. But the restitution section, that's the scoreboard. That's where it defines what a win actually looks like, the specific steps needed to reach a final, fair resolution. So if there's one key thing to take away from all this, it's this duality. On the one hand, Democracy.com is a deeply personal, meticulously organized archive built to preserve one person's story. But on the other hand, it's a very public demand for accountability. It's both a record of the past and a clear, actionable plan for the future.
And, that leaves us with a really fascinating question to think about. This entire massive project is built on the idea that the official records, the official systems, simply weren't enough. It really makes you wonder, in an age where anyone can publish anything, when people feel that the established story has failed them, who has the right to build their own archive? And what does that do to our shared idea of what's true?